Hello, everybody. Welcome to this edition of Coffee Time with Byron. On this edition, we have former Major Leaguer Kyle Blanks with my team, the Padres. How are you doing tonight?
Doing well, yourself?
Hanging in there. Just had a tropical storm come by here in Florida. Wasn't that bad, but we survived it.
That's always a good start.
Yes, it was. So let's begin. You were a 42nd round pick, 1241 overall in the 04 draft. Did you know you were going to go in that round, or how was that process about, and who told you were getting drafted?
I really didn't have much understanding of the process at that point. I had only ever really met a couple scouts, so my exposure to really what to expect was very little. So the scout who I initially talked to with San Diego, his name was Jake Wilson, called me and informed me that I've been picked in the 42nd round. So that was pretty much how it went for me. There was not nearly the same amount of information available as there is today. So it was just kind of not really much to expect.
Now, going through that process when you were going through college to get scouted and all that, there wasn't that many scouts at all that came out in that time compared to nowadays, or did they not just want to have scouts nearby at any time to get good talent?
There's definitely scouts around, but I went to a very small high school. Even in college, I went to a junior college that wasn't very big, but it wasn't very. I'd still say fairly notable as far as just a good conference as far as college baseball is concerned. But otherwise, you're kind of, at the time I was dealing with it, you were very limited to who you would run into, because there just wasn't the abundance of channels to actually contact people through, or to make people aware of that talent, or what have you. I mean, the world's still pretty small if you live in the middle of nowhere, so it does make it difficult for, I played with a lot of guys that were from, arguably maybe smaller areas than I was from, just different parts of the country or the world.
Mm-hmm. So in 2008, you were named the Padres Minor League Player of the Year. What was that honor like to you, and having that award?
I think just throughout the whole process, it was nice to, I think it was more of an achievement of, okay, I'm doing some of the things right that I'm trying to do. Baseball is a game. I've been explaining this to a lot of people lately, that even your successes are heavily weighted by failure. So even my best year was actually more heavily failed than succeeded, as far as success as a hitter. It was very cool to do that, but a lot of it was because, if I look back, it was it felt like a great season because of a lot of the, let's say a lot of those slumps, or 0 for 20s were maybe more 0 for 10s, maybe the 0 for 10s were more 0 for 7s, things like that. It was just a year that had, just kind of went my way a little bit more. But it was more of a cool thing to be there, as far as just, okay, this is the success that I was trying to have, as far as, just hitting the ball, putting the ball in play. This is basically what came out of it. No differently than kind of going, moving up every year was kind of that, okay, you achieved what you were looking to achieve.
Right.
And this is kind of where you landed.
Now, did you have any relationships in the minor leagues, or were you a player that mainly just focused on getting to the ultimate goal of getting to the big leagues, or just playing in the minors and being, like, I want to say maybe like a loner player, not having relationships?
As far as other players?
Yes.
No, I definitely, very clearly knew I could have been leaving the field as quickly as anybody else, and I'd seen it happen numerous times. So you can't make people do things they're not going to do. That's why at times I would do things in the cage that wouldn't benefit me because I was just willing to try them. Whereas some people aren't even willing to get there, and maybe that's what gets them over the hump. So I saw a lot of that happen, but it definitely didn't deter me from just, I guess, trying to be a good teammate in general. But otherwise, I thankfully was part of a pretty good core that moved up fairly together for a couple years in a row. But after a while, you just don't really know anybody if you go to a different team. It just kind of becomes you're just, if you've been around for a while, you just know people from playing them or hearing about them, but otherwise, yeah, it's definitely a good place to have that network, just to be able to go into a random locker room and have someone to just have a basic conversation with.
Now, were you the player that had that mindset of, if I'm going to fail, I'm going to fail, and I'll go on to something else? Or did you have the mindset of, I'm going to succeed in what I'm doing to excel to other things?
As far as baseball, probably my expectations were just do what's asked of you here. Every level has a different a quality that gets better. Like the baseball gets better because this part as a whole improves. And I think I was able to kind of meet that goal at every level. And that was really what I think kind of helped me get through it. Just not having an expectation in high school because I had no exposure to the expectations. Same thing in college. Just knowing I need to do good here first before I can think about what's going to be after this, because I don't know. I kind of have whether or not I knew that was exactly how I was going about it, it tended to be the way, if I look back, that I approach things like, you shouldn't count your chickens because this is baseball. It never really works out in your favor all the time, or anytime it seems that you put a little too much on it, it doesn't work out in your favor and it really hurts you.
Now, I remember the majority of your career because I'm a big Padre fan, so I remember the majority of the fan, that's where you spent your most time with. You were pretty tall. Did you ever hear from people, oh, you should have been a basketball player instead of a baseball player, with how tall you were?
I've definitely heard that, and a lot of that is just, I actually said that same thing to somebody today. If you think I'm tall, you should actually see a basketball player who is actually really tall. So, I get it. There are players that are my size, but a lot of it is you just haven't seen that next level human that plays that game. But no, I've typically was pegged for football, and then basketball was another more common. Baseball, obviously, was probably the least, I'd say.
What ultimately got you into deciding baseball over those sports? Was it the love for baseball over the other ones, or what made you decide to ultimately play it? Initially I just didn't get to play football. First, it started off not being allowed to, then just kind of not really wanting to. And then in high school, I started playing baseball when I was 8, 9, right around there. And I just always kind of enjoyed it, always excelled. I would never say I was always the best player on my team by any stretch, but otherwise just always was a competitor amongst the competitors. So it was just something I always enjoyed, and even my competitive nature doesn't really come from winning so much as seeing how someone else is doing it and trying to do it better, or thinking maybe I have a better way of trying to do it. And that's kind of what baseball is. You're trying to find the best swing out of what you have, and obviously if you can put it together consistently, to me, that's genuinely what's going to separate talent, is the ability to just lay it out there consistently. That's basically what the big leagues is from top to bottom, is
the best of the best are just the most consistent at what they do.
Now, what do you think was why you don't? What do you think was the element and a factor that you think why you couldn't stay healthy in the big leagues? Because you were constantly injured, unfortunately for you, because you were a good player. I thought you were. Every time you stepped on the field, I saw you play. But unfortunately, you had tons of injuries that derailed your career. Do you think if you didn't have those injuries, you would have had a more successful baseball career?
It definitely would have been different, but to just say yes is I don't know. I definitely think once I really started to get hurt, you start to kind of chase down making certain things better, and you leave certain things to kind of take the stresses of that. And if you don't do a good job, even if you get hurt and it's one part of your body, you have to do a really good job of evening everything back out entirely, including that injury. And I think that's something I didn't really learn for myself how to really do until it was just too late, and I was always playing catch up. And that game is very difficult to sustain. I look back and it's really interesting to think, like, how did I just do this every day? Looking at the things I would actually do in the off season, during the season, and just keep going. It is a finite. You do have a finite period of time to actually achieve that. Good, bad, or indifferent. I think it would have been nice to not get injured more, but I don't necessarily. That would mean I would just have been more successful. I would have had a different career for sure, but otherwise, that's all I could really say. I just definitely was always playing catch up with injuries at a certain point, and it just became something that was unavoidable.
Now, okay, go ahead. Sorry, go ahead. Finish what
I was going to say. I personally took myself out of the equation, so the next injury wasn't like a bad one that left me, limping or really hurt for the rest of my life. That was really why I stopped playing.
Now, when you finally got hurt the last time before the Giants released you, I think it was in 2017. Yeah, 2017. Did you know that injury was going to be the end of your major league career, or did you know before that?
So I had in 2016 I had a surgery. I basically was rehabbing all 2016. 2017 I played, and it was just poor performance that actually got me released. Played in Mexico I was there for 3 games. I actually then hurt myself. That was when I just stopped playing. I basically, unless I was going to be guaranteed something at the big league level, there was no reason for me to gamble what I knew was already unhealthy. I had a very good experience with the Giants. I just genuinely was at the end of my rope. Would have required another surgery if something, a hip, something was coming. Just because I know what's required of that game, the swings, the running, the lifting. It's unavoidable that I was already too far behind, and that was what was going to happen. So it was, once again, and I saw my performance starting to be affected by my physicality diminishing. Like, my hip became an issue. So in 2017, I was swinging differently every series, or trying to find something that was just comfortable, rather than necessarily what actually felt maybe the most hitterish. I just needed to be able to actually be in there and play. And that's kind of where I got to.
So, you were number 88 throughout your whole career. What was the deal with number 88? What'd you like about it that became your jersey number all them years?
So, my first number was number 22. And that was David Eckstein's number. So it went to him shortly after I was given it. And then the following year, then I was given number 8. The following year, we had another player come in as Torrealba, and he was number 8. So that number went to him. I picked it because I felt like it was a number no one would ever pick, because I was I never cared.
Yeah.
I was always asking for the biggest jersey that in the minors, you're not picking your number. So can I please have the biggest? Well, some guys get to, but for me, it was always I need the biggest one, and that typically is one of the higher numbers, and I don't really care. Mm-hmm. So 88 was more a reflection of I just was tired of switching numbers, and rarely would you ever have to deal with that moving forward. Now there's, I think, a couple. So it's just kind of it's a funny thing. I picked it solely because it was just, all right, I'm tired of having to do this shuffle. I don't care anyway, so let's pick something that's just not, obscene, but makes sense.
I agree with you. You don't see that because those are only mainly like spring training numbers for those who have ambitions of making it to, the majors, and they're mainly in spring training. So yeah, I'm glad you actually said that because nobody would ever stop to think 88 is a major league number.
they're far more unconventional than what people are traditionally fighting for. So, yeah, it was definitely something I kind of took into account that I don't think, and to be fair, even through some of the years, it was kind of like that in spring training where being given that number, people did perceive, just the random person perceives you to be a high numbered, like you're just an extra for the day.
Yeah.
So it's like, it's kind of some built-in camouflage. It was pretty cool.
So you were called up after 66 AAA games, which you were on fire. I forget your average and what you hit. But you were called up after Cliff Floyd went on the DL in 2009. That's when you made your major league debut. Tell us about that, and what was that experience like replacing a certified MLB Hall of Famer for quite a while there?
It's kind of that goal you're always working towards. So shortly before that, couple weeks maybe, I had started working on doing some outfield work, where now I would tell anybody, versatility is valuable. It definitely comes with its pitfalls because there was a lot more running involved, a lot more mileage on your body. But it was definitely just a very overwhelming experience. Some guys manage that differently. Some guys don't. I played in that stadium prior to that in A-ball, so I had an idea of what it was and what it looked like. But I think the biggest thing, I made the game bigger than it really was because it was very uncomfortable. Like, I didn't, I pinch hit, didn't swing, just basically it was frozen, and that's the funny thing is I saw a lot of people not have that experience, so it was always nice to know that, this is just uncomfortable. Same first at bat every season for me, I always had like jelly legs, like just never felt really like, okay, it's kind of like I needed something to happen prior to really having that settle in that this is what I'm doing. So it was kind of that experience. It was cool to take it all in, but at the same time, I think the baseball side of it was very enlightening. Just when you basically speed the game up faster than it is, it becomes extremely difficult, and that's typically it's no different than I saw many players just throughout my career in the minors maybe come up from wherever they were to AAA and make a spot start, and AAA is a very good proving ground for baseball. So if you don't get away with the same pitches, the strike zone maybe not be the same as the umpires you're used to, as everybody's working on everything at every level. So it just becomes a very unique thing that I would say I was very unprepared for, but a lot of that is even through my childhood, like I played in front of very few people until basically professionally playing. Like I never really played in front of anybody until Low A in 2006, and the opening in West Michigan was like 6,000 or 8,000 people. That was by far the biggest baseball stadium I'd ever been in at that point. And some guys that go to big high schools or in different states, once again, their exposure, you might get to play in the professional stadium down the street or the college stadium down the street, or that's just a different experience. But I was definitely it was definitely a little much for me, and I was so nervous in the box I couldn't even move.
Now, since you did replace him on the DL, did you ever get to talk to him, or did you ever get to talk to Cliff Floyd at all? Like,
so I met him in spring training that year, or in '09. Yeah, I met him in that spring training. Yeah, definitely. I was the same player I knew. Just unfortunately, I was seeing him at the end of his career as well, and you can't avoid some of those things. Nature will end. Nature and the game will end up doing to you. So it was nice to kind of see someone who was also ready to go. Kind of understood, at least from what I got out of it. Kind of understood. I'd rather kind of be done than hurt, sort of thing. So that was basically our exchange of it. Because shortly after that, I think he left and went and got surgery, and kind of finished up the season at home, as most people would do if you're going to have a big one to end it. But very. In my experience as a teammate, was a very nice teammate to me. Was very helpful as far as just making me feel comfortable in that environment. I did get to see him shortly before he left, and that was just, when you're hurt, you're hurt. So
right.
I definitely looked like that, but it was pretty cool getting to see him in spring training when he was, I guess it was healthiest for the year, and getting to see what you and I got to see growing up.
Now, you were considered the highest rated prospect for the Padres at the time before your call-up. Take us through the pressure you had of knowing that, because the Padres at the time were considered, I think, 1 or 2 in prospects in the whole league. What was the pressure like on you being the highest rated prospect?
I never really put that pressure on myself. Once again, we were a fairly smaller market, so you're not given the same exposure. I never really dealt with much as far as media exposure. That year when I got to Portland, it was brought up very little. It didn't really have the same potential impact like now, where you could make it a big thing in a very small period of time. There you're dealing with the mediums of the time. Mm-hmm. So for me, it was really just, okay, once again, verification that what you've been doing makes sense. So continue to make these adjustments, and you should continue to see things like this happen. So, I didn't really put the same pressure on myself that maybe you can. I know at times I know it was there, but I can't control anything more than what's going to happen in front of me. So knowing that any random person is going to question why you are a prospect or this or that, those things very rarely come across your mind. Especially, I had a very good group of guys around me in the minors. That, once again, that core that had kind of stuck around. So a lot of it was, I always felt like I was very much in support of everybody here. I had, like I said, a very good group of teammates. I was 6, 7, 8, 9, had a good core, move up collectively. So, for me, it was always like, I'm surrounded by good competitors, good teammates, because every year we're always doing something decent. So I was very spoiled in that regard, as far as just, regardless whether it was a San Diego logo or just a blank shirt, I had a really good experience of the team dynamic in baseball.
Now, like you said, you mentioned you were blessed to be a part of good teams, but what do you think ultimately went wrong, and why you guys didn't exceed in the playoffs, to make it to the playoffs? Because you went to the playoffs a couple times, and you missed the playoffs a couple times there before the rebuild. What do you think happened, and why you guys didn't succeed in the playoffs?
I would never say there's one answer. Everybody in the locker room and the dugout is trying as hard as they can. So it really is unfortunate when you see the worst baseball come out at the worst possible times, or and that's relative. Worst can mean a single error, or this guy never misses this, or this. Some of that is every player is their own player and is dealing with this pressure in their own way. I eventually got to a point where it's a game. A game is a game is a game. Like, just let's get it started and let's go. But I don't know. I think there's really no. I've never questioned, like, if you're gonna win, like, you as the player, why you lost the game. I was never too hung up on, like, man, I wish we would have did this. Like, why you lost. Why you won. You're playing way too many games to really get worried about this one, even if it is the last one. But I don't really have an exact answer for you. I always feel like I was on very talented teams, and sometimes it's the talent. Everybody there is very talented. Sometimes it's just a matter of putting the pieces in the right places. Sometimes it's just some players mature in the baseball world at different times, and otherwise, like myself, I didn't become a competent outfielder until 3 years in, where I was basically confident in catching most things that are going to go up in the air, but it wasn't until years of practicing and doing a lot of extra work prior to the game that I think a lot of my teammates, or I would ask pitchers, like, are you comfortable with me out there? And that's all I want to know. I don't want you to feel like you don't want somebody to hit it to me.
Right.
And that's because I want to contribute, and then being able to be at first occasionally and be told, hey, I like looking over there and just seeing a big target. That's some of those things are very nice to know you bring to the table, just because. For once again, we've all seen a zoo in the outfield. Like, just generally speaking, I've been one. It's not fun, and that's the part of when you can take that out of the equation, at least for the most part. It definitely instills a lot more confidence in your teammates.
Now, you were part of those good teams which had good veterans like Adrian Gonzalez, Quit Floyd at time before he left. Even you had, I think, Kevin Kuzminoff, Chase Headley, leaders like that. Do you think, what does coaching come into play where does coaching come into play? Does that come into, like, a successful season? Also, is that why you guys think co-op has a group to make it, to win more games? Or was there not good leadership in the locker room? Does that also play a role too?
So it definitely does, and I definitely believe we have very good veteran leadership, as far as guys who just, whether or not they were, I think it was more they were willing to help you with the experience. Matt Stairs was a very good, Matt Stairs and David Eckstein, probably two of the best examples for myself, and just very helping to make you very comfortable, even in times where you're not very comfortable. And it's because they're possibly a decade ahead of you, and they don't see what you're going through as the same struggle, because they maybe see you being able to get out of it. So, but as far as it's I know, once again, as a player, you're playing against the teams you're playing against. So, like, I got no hit by very good pitchers. I got shut down by very good pitchers. I was, had hits taken away by very good defenders. I really feel like, the teams I played on, you're underachieving if you're not living up to the expectations of who's in front of you. I was totally happy with the outcome of every game. It sucks to lose, but I know why we're losing. And it's kind of I would say it's probably not a popular mindset, probably not the more common mindset, but there's so many games to be played. If you weigh too much weight on one, It's only this 4 at bats, which I have struck out every 4 of them numerous times, is going to happen tomorrow and the next day and the next day. And then, so if you can't get over it today, it's going to be a really rough tomorrow and the next day. That's the thing I think especially as injuries started to come into my career, understanding I just want to have a good game today, and whatever happens, happens. You know, the outcome is we're all professionals here, and a really good product gets put out on the field, basically. Like, we can all do this really well. That's what I started to lean on. But it was definitely, you know, from my standpoint, it's crazy we're at times it's crazy we beat a team that seemed to be that good, and sometimes it's crazy that a team seemed to beat us because we seemed unbeatable. You know, I think that's kind of going through it day in, day out. Sometimes you basically are a slightly different team every day. You know, you're one more step into battle, so to speak. So you do have a little more wear on your tires, and you do recover, but otherwise, you know, it's not always easy to go into that next game with the same fire, knowing I have this many more, and you know, I do have to play tomorrow. You know, there's just a lot of factors that come into it. But I was always very happy, you know, with the outcome of the day. But otherwise, it is unfortunate to get left on the field. You know, it sucks to get left on the field in a walk-off. It sucks to have an error that contributes to losing the game. It sucks to do a lot of things that I've struck out to end so many games. It was terrible. But there's going to be one of these tomorrow. So if I let this just dominate my thoughts, this is not going to be fun.
Now, looking back at your career, I've seen that you were the GM, Jed Hoyer, at the time, wanted you to play basically outfield, third base, first base. What is that experience like in having to try and go from other positions to where you originally want to play? What's your mindset as a player playing those positions and swapping to another position?
I think a large part of it is if you're confident in where they're trying to put you. You know, like I would have been happy trying to play any position, like catcher, pitcher. Like, there's not a position I wouldn't try or haven't played in my life. But otherwise, I know how good this position should be played. And if I'm not going to be up to that standard more often than not, kind of like in the outfield, once I learned how to play it, basically when I first started, I was able to catch everything that was, you know, I was very competent with a glove. Then it became competent with a little bit of range. At that point, by the end of it, you know, I could do a little of everything. I was, you know, somebody that wasn't just out there to take up space. If you were to put me at third base, I can't say that would have been the case. I definitely would not have been the same potential player because of what it takes to do certain things at that position. Yeah, I think I could have filled in if I needed to here or there. That still would have taken a tremendous amount of reps. You know, just going from left field to right field was very interesting, especially depending on the stadium I was in. So,
especially Petco.
Yeah, Petco can be very gusty from time to time. Traditionally, most guys like playing right more than left. I just learned to play the outfield and left field, so I was always a little more comfortable out there. But, you know, it's not, you're always open as a player to play more. A lot of it is just I never wanted to be in the game because of hitting and know that the pitcher is upset at my quality of defense because I'm just not supposed to be where I am. That's something that does happen, but I do think, you know, that's some of that is hitting is its own unique skill set that it is different from fielding, playing the outfield, judging a fly ball, judging the wind, running and catching, throwing, all those things. So it is a really unique thing to be available to play multiple positions, you know, especially if hitting is your constant. You know, if defense is where you're shaky, hitting has to be a constant. If you're like most guys where you're a hitter and that's the part that you always struggle with, but defense is the constant, that's that's the more common play. Most guys can play a fairly confident game of defense, but it's the guys you see that are only hitters have a very tough time finding a place to be, because if you're only seen as valuable half of the game for 4 times a game, maybe, that's where, it becomes more valuable to be more versatile, whether that be a hitter and defender, or, even just a more versatile hitter.
Now, you were in competition battles over first baseman with Anthony Rizzo, Yonder Alonso, and guys like that. Did those battles at those positions motivate you to play better, or what was your mindset in those position battles going into spring training and even in a season?
On the inside, I'd say knowing if you perform, like for myself, I knew that if I did what I was supposed to do and I wasn't there, everyone else is seeing this happening, and I am going to have a good opportunity to go somewhere else. Sometimes that did actually happen in 2014, and that's when I got traded.
Right.
But a lot of that was based off of I had seen it happen so many times for so long. I believed it. It's like you can't ever stop playing just because you're not where you want to be right now. And that's, if you're still playing, you have the opportunity to be there very quickly. But I think, going about it for the game, like we're all here as a team, like spring training, we're all here doing the same drills, getting the same BP. Basically the game is what differentiates you. So it's like, I always was happy coming out of spring training feeling good. I don't care where I end up. I want to feel really good first, and if I feel really good, I'll be where I'm supposed to be. I became the person towards the end that, at certain points became, a victim of circumstance and productivity. Like maybe I wasn't doing well enough at the time, so I wasn't going to get there. Sometimes I was doing well enough, and someone else was blocking that path or this. So if you were always just, I'm going to play a baseball game today, doesn't matter where it is, if you can kind of get that into your head, as I did at a certain point, because I think it was 2013, I did a little bit of yo-yoing up and down. That was, kind of that experience of you got to be able to, you basically have to be able to play anywhere, when you're asked to do that. And that was a very good experience for me to go through. Like, basically, I think I got sent down, or stayed somewhere, maybe stayed in San Diego when the team traveled. I was going to travel somewhere else, and then the last minute I was told to catch a plane to go meet the team again, and just random things that I was hitting well. I was feeling comfortable. That's why I was just kind of like, all right, wherever I have to be is where I have to be. If everything, if I'm doing what I'm supposed to do, that's all you can really ask for. And that was also a few injuries in, so just truly wanting to be healthy and appreciating that side of it.
Well, yeah, it says right here, I saw it was your best year. You set a career high in games played, 88. You had a 243 average and 8 home runs. And for you, honestly, yeah, unfortunately, like you said, it was an injury-plagued career. But yeah, that was, I would say, yeah, that was by far your best year. Would you agree on that one that you've had?
Yeah, as far as all around, the last couple seasons with Oakland and Texas, I felt were very disciplined. I was just far more of a role player, and that was actually really cool to get to play. Going from Oakland, playing that platoon style, as opposed to, that was my first dive into the American League style of play. So basically, this is how you're going to play, was very unique to, if you're not starting, you got to be ready to go in at any point. That's an entirely different style of game. And, I think getting to focus differently on the game, my hitting statistics were very small sized, but I definitely did better as far as all around. And a lot of it was I was just processing the game better. I was able to take whatever information, the scouting reports, all those things, and I was able to make them make a little bit more sense for me. I was able to use the hitting coaches a lot more as a tool, as opposed to either trying to let them do everything or influence everything. There was a lot more of a conversation of like, how do we get me right? And that's why I just had a lot of really good help doing that those last couple of years. Once again, but from 2015, basically 2014 until 2017, I was just always battling injury, and that's I was always really happy to come out of those to find some success on the field. Especially like Oakland was a very fun experience. Same with Texas, just getting to play the game at a little different pace. American League was at least for me, it was an entirely different pace going from National League to American. And, if you're not playing, you get to kind of, all right, how am I going to get ready if I am going to go in? Or the National League, it's just, from first pitch, something can happen, and now something else has to happen. So it was definitely very enjoyable. But as far as longevity and just a season of experience, 13 was by far the best one for me.
Yeah, since you said you played in both leagues, which you did, you played in American and National. The DH role, which is a big part of the AL, did you like the AL part of that in the DH? Because I'm sure you got it. I'm sure you had to hit in the DH role at times in your career.
I may have. I can't say for sure that I did or didn't. I would imagine out of any of those at bats, possibly at least one of them came as a DH, but I can't say for sure. But I know it offers you a different dynamic. It's an entirely different game as far as what the pitcher sees, because the lineup is all hitters.
Yeah.
Whereas in the National League game, as soon as the game starts, the 9 hole is part of the thinking. So it was just an entirely different experience. I think I saw the differences, but as far as I would guess this, I started to prepare the same way for any game, because in AAA you're back and forth pretty regularly between DH rule and a pitchers hitting for themselves, depending on how the games line up, National League and American League parent clubs. So you do get quite a bit of experience with that pace if you're a National League team, but if you're an American League team, you'd never experience it. So coming up in the Padres organization, you're subjected to an entirely different style of baseball than an American League player would be, and vice versa. And then when if you happen to jump that line, that's when you experience like, oh, okay, like there's actually an entirely different cadence to the game.
Yeah, I agree with you on that. There totally is. It's a different mindset between NL and AL, and a lot of people are saying today that they should just go with the universal DH for both leagues. I'm not sure on that. I mean, I grew up like in the NL because that's how it was for years, the pitcher hit. And I like the DH role too because Edgar Martinez and David Ortiz made that role what it is. They were, that's what they were known for. So I'm tossed and turned on it. Where are you? Do you like the DH compared to the NL with the pitcher hitting the old days? What do you like better?
I would say I probably favor the time I played, and I don't know the origin of the DH. I don't know how any of it started, or I just know the way I experience the game. You genuinely are playing two different styles that meet at the very end, and it's interesting to see how they mesh, or even interleague play. Those things are very fun to see, especially when you're playing the game and you as a National League team, get to see an American League team come here and have to figure it out because it's an entirely different game. In the American League style, you can truly interchange pitchers in an entirely different way than in the National League style of game. So my opinion is I just enjoyed the dynamic difference because it doesn't have anything to do with homers. It doesn't have anything to do with trying to influence the game other than that's just how it was for me. I didn't, once again, didn't know how it happened, but I think it's far more entertaining to the engaged fan when they know why it's different and they know why is this pitcher a good hitter and why is this pitcher not a good hitter. Well, one of them hits all year and the other one hits, a couple times a year, maybe, if he lines up for interleague play. So there's just a lot of funky details that are just really nuanced that have a big impact on the game, because let's say that guy runs into a ball and gets on base. Now he's got to run. Now he's got to, if he wants to help himself, like we're in the National League game, that's you're learning that. You're learning how to do that. You're not just trying to do it as good as you can when you encounter it. So I really do like the different styles personally. As a player, I probably benefited and enjoyed the American League style more, just because if I would have came up in that style of game, I probably would have had a better potential to stay healthier, just because you're not having to scramble the same way. But it's not, once again, it doesn't mean anything would have happened. There's just that different cadence is a lot slower of a pace, because everybody 1 through 9 is a hitter. That never changes throughout the game. In the National League, a double switch, a good hitting pitcher, good reliever, closer coming in, late inning, extra inning games, all that stuff becomes really entertaining on the National League side, because you have no choice at certain points to have your pitcher hit or try and bunt or base run or do something. The American League style game doesn't require that with the same degree of regularity.
Now, during your career in the minors or majors, what player or coach helped you along the way the most?
I had a lot of really good help from the coaches, trainers, a lot of good clubbies. I had a lot of good help from a lot of that support staff. Just about every year, if you looked at my minor league staffs, once again, I was blessed with a lot of kind of repeat customers as far as coaches, like hitting coaches. Max Venable was a very notable hitting coach of mine that I really meshed well with.
You played with his brother. You played with his son too, didn't you?
Son. Yeah, Will Venable. Yeah, so he was definitely spoke my language as far as a coach to a player. Another coach, Tom Tornicasa, in the Padres system, was a very big help. I had him numerous years. Just once again, a lot of good trainers, a lot of people that just kind of learned me and would help me try and stay ahead of things. But a lot of that is, if you're not participating in that, it kind of sucks to be told that you're not hitting well. But if you take it right, you might start hitting well. It's very difficult to manage that game when it's always on top of you. It's never stopping, especially once the season starts. So, fixing your swing requires either, thinking that little tiny changes are going to make a big difference right now, which sometimes might be the thing, or I'm going to have to deal with the fact that I'm overhauling my swing and the season started, and I'm probably not going to get many hits until I feel comfortable. So it's wild. If you, I've said this to a couple buddies that still play. It's like, if you were to watch someone's highlight tape, a hitter's highlight reel, it's less than a third of their time at the plate. You're typically not showing the worst hits, even if they're hits. So you're probably showing less than the amount of hits they get. And then on top of that, so if you were to watch someone's highlight tape and then their entire hitting tape, the entire hitting tape would be garbage. You wouldn't want to sit through all the strikeouts, all of the broken bats, all of the, that's the thing that I think I really got to learn from my experience. Was I learned a lot more from that high volume of failure than from, man, I'm hitting 300 or I'm doing this. It was just so, it seemed you would get really, really up there and then it would just fall away really quick. And that's that's the experience I had quite a bit, was hitting really well and just being like, there's no way this is going to keep going. Like, it's got to stop somewhere. And it typically stops really, really hard. There were numerous times where I would step into the box and just, I've forgotten everything. And this is where 0 for 10 starts. Like, I don't feel anything right. Everything feels bad. And, but if you have a good coach, if you have some people around you who really know you, once again, those 0 for 10s tend to be maybe 0 for 7s. The 0 for 20s, maybe 0 for 10s. That's how some of those better seasons you'll see get put together, because the player is always trying to put in a lot of effort, but they have a lot of good people around them who know them and truly are trying to keep them moving in that direction as well.
What part of your game would you like to have improved the most in, the fielding or the hitting?
I think the fielding, I was always very, I always wanted to be, defense is going to win championships, and it was always fun to win games on defense, on the fact that you happen to be able to make the defensive plays that should have been made. I would say I did more often than not, but otherwise, I think that was the thing I saw always being able to benefit from improvement was defensive play. You can always, maybe I could have, if I was in a better position to start, I could have got that or this. Hitting is always, there's so many other components to hitting. Mainly the guy who's throwing you the ball is not trying to throw you something you can hit. That's the part of it that really, hitting, I started to really understand as far as that side of it. Like, don't over expect. Defense was something you have a lot more influence over. I can put in some work. During BP, I can track balls. I can have someone hit me fungos. I always thought defense was very, very important, and I always wanted the pitcher I was playing behind to have confidence that, because through the years you would talk to guys, some guys are very open about their poor defense. I didn't want to be the reason, when I was learning the outfield, I didn't want to be the reason somebody lost a game. Especially if I've known him for 3-4 years, hey man, they're telling me to do this. I don't want it to have an effect on your career, but I'm trying my best. Yeah. And that was why, once again, defense is something that if we can all rely on each other, we all know as a team, even if we're not hitting, that guy's doing his best to get us out. So, it sucks not scoring runs, but it is really bad when you're always having a snowball fight, on the field, or little league home runs. That is never fun to be part of.
So we got a few minutes left with you before we go. Tell us, what are you doing nowadays, and if you got anything to promote, please do it to help yourself out.
Well, after I stopped playing baseball in 2017, I got my medical cannabis card, and very shortly after that met my business partners, Bob and Lori Boylan, and in the state of New Mexico for the last 2+ years. We've been manufacturing Roadrunner CBD, and it's a high-quality, wellness branded CBD products. And a lot of this came from a lot of experience with cannabis and trying to find alternatives to all the pills, the alcohol, everything I dealt with across the game, and just trying to find alternatives to those just simply to feel better. And it's been an amazing journey all the way up to now. It's definitely been quite an experience trying to help people, just basically trying to help people with their health, trying to help people understand that I just want you to feel as good as you can. This can be a very valuable component to that. And that's why I said, I'd love to send you some to try. Anyone who's interested, go to roadrunnercbd.com and check us out. We're very accessible, and we're all about education and advocacy, because, we really want to help people feel better, and the best way to do that is genuinely through education. Same way, talking about, maybe more unconventional things around the game of baseball is how you get to open up that spectrum of understanding that there's a lot of guys who had a way rougher experience than I did. Maybe even started in a better position. There's examples of that everywhere. And, the cool part is now I genuinely get to look past a lot of that to just trying to help people. Like, look, how do you feel? What are you doing? Would you be willing to try something different? And that's genuinely what CBD and cannabis can be for a lot of people, is just something different. As a player, I was a consumer from around 2012. When I abided by the rules as a player. So, unfortunately, that will lead to using other tools, alcohol, pills if available. So it has been very gratifying to try and help people understand what I went through, and just to share, this is why I started doing something different, because I was finding these things could help me, and I met some people who also was feeling the same thing, but we thought we could do it better. And most of that was because we were willing to have these types of conversations with a very polarizing subject, because we genuinely think it can help you. So, but yeah, it's been a great experience up to now. And like I said, go to RoadrunnerCBD.com. I'll definitely get that out to you pretty soon, and
Perfect.
We'll see how we can get you feeling.
Definitely. My last question to you before we go. One word that summarizes your playing career.
Oh man, traveled. Not the most, but a little bit traveled. I've had some unique experiences. Just randomly, I got to go to China to play baseball. Didn't have the mileage a lot of other guys did, but I did get to play in both leagues. Didn't get to play in every stadium, but I did get to play in some really cool ones. And but otherwise, yeah, just marginal statistically in the big leagues, pretty marginal, but very well traveled. I got to see a good chunk of the game, and that was very fun for me.
Awesome. Thank you for your time. I appreciate you. Like I told you before, I watched your entire career. You were one of my favorite Padres. I had plenty of them, of course, but you were one of them. I appreciate your time. I'm glad we were able to connect and have this, and I'm glad to connect you as well, since you got my number now. I got your number, and yeah, send some to me so I can try that. And definitely, if you feel free to come on whenever you want to.
Awesome. Well, I appreciate you taking the time, and I'll definitely get that to you, and we'll get some feedback.
And feel free to, since if you have like any other social media, you can share your business to. I think we're also on LinkedIn too, so you can do that on LinkedIn.
Okay.
I don't know about Instagram, but you can post there too and share it on. Just helping you out.
No, absolutely. Feel free to do the same.
Definitely. All right, man. It was a pleasure. I'll be texting you soon.
Sounds good, man. I appreciate you having me, and thank you for taking the time.
Definitely. You have a good night.
You too.
Bye.
Bye.
Kyle Blanks, everybody. Well, that concludes this episode. And we will see you tomorrow, bright and early morning, because we got a Korean baseball guy on tomorrow. So, hope you enjoy it. Have a good night.